Hello, everybody. My name is Peter Yamas, and I will be doing my author study on Yuri Shuvelitz. He is a Polish and American author. I will start off by telling you a little bit about his life, where he originated from, and how he started writing children's books, and then I'll talk about two of his books as well. So Yuri was actually born in Poland, Warsaw, on February 27th, 1935, and he and his family actually had fled from Poland at the age of 4, just because the Warsaw Blitz which was a big thing that was occurring, which hundreds of families had to flee due to it. For about 8 years after that, they had to become wanderers and backpackers through multiple different countries. So he definitely lived a pretty tough life growing up from 4 to 12. But by 12, he and his family landed and stayed in Paris while he was there for his rest of that age group to a little bit throughout his teen years as well. So he was actually started drawing and writing stories at the young age when he was in elementary school. And he actually won a drawing competition in his elementary school in Paris. After that, it gave him pretty big motivation. He just continually, grasped to his talent and kept moving forward. After he was a teenager, he moved to Israel, and he, at this time, his parents again were still, within the poverty line, so he had to do a lot of different odd and side jobs to, support as much as he can for him and his family. But he still continued, drawing and writing, little short stories, mainly a lot of comics. But due to the talent of his drawing, he actually had a drawing and was one of the youngest ones to actually have a drawing in the Tel Aviv Museum in Israel. So that definitely, started off his, illustration career pretty high. At the age of 24, he moved to New York and was actually studying at the Brooklyn Museum Art School, and from there he actually wrote his first book, The Moon in My Room, in 1963, which launched him to write over 40 other books. It's actually a really famous book. I read it when I was younger, so it's pretty crazy to do research on him now and see where he's progressed. The first book that I'm going to talk about, I actually don't have it. It was completely hard to find. I went to Barnes and Nobles, went to 2 different libraries, and they still didn't have it. But I think it was one of his, biggest books within, to show, a little bit about his life and, as a refugee and an immigrant, and the struggle that he, had growing up. It doesn't exactly show him, but it shows a little similar to him. So that book was How I Learned Geography, which is basically about a little boy who, him and his family had to flee out of their country as well. So it definitely relates to his, family having to flee from Poland. So I'm almost 100% sure that that's, where it, came from. And they moved to a small little town, and it actually looked like Israel. So I'm not really sure if that's exactly where it was, but he did show that similar type of style of Israel. So, but yeah, anyways, so the book consists of a little boy, and his father ended up going to the store, but to get bread, his family was so poor that even the bread that his father would have bought wouldn't have fed everybody. So his father instead bought a map and, the mother was so mad, and the little boy, which is possibly Yuri when he was younger, but they were furious. They were like, how can my father not care for us and buying a map instead of food? We're hungry. But as the story goes on, it shows the little boy progressing and appreciating the map. He was learning and admiring all these different places around the world, and while doing that, he was showing his imagination, and he was picturing himself in all different places around the world. He was in like a jungle, he was in the city, he was doing this and that, with all these higher people throughout the whole world, just living a better life than he was. He was eating food, he was swimming, doing this and that, and and that's pretty much like the whole story. And it showed like the difference of how mad he was at first, but then the slowly appreciating what his father actually gave him, that this map was feeding him more than that bread ever can. And it's true that it did. And why I really like this story, unfortunately I don't have it in front of me, I had to read it on online, but it shows that not a lot of kids, especially potentially Yuri, had to go through as a refugee, living in the poverty, fleeing your own country because something terrible is happening, and not being able to even eat maybe a few nights, but having something simple like your imagination can change your whole mindset. And he was escaping from his reality to being happy somewhere else. And maybe that's why Yuri ended up doing whatever he had to do, and then getting out to New York and starting his career as a writer and illustrator. And again, I'm not really 100% sure, but that's possibly what he had to do, especially only knowing Polish, growing up from Poland. People from the U.S., they only know English, but a lot of foreigners, they tend to try to learn a second language, especially coming here. He had a lot of hardships. New York's was very expensive, by the time he came in the 1960s, and having nothing and nobody here, it was definitely difficult for him. But I mean, he ended up saving money in Israel, and did what he had to do to come here to, I mean, it's pretty cliche, but to have the American dream. So but yeah, that is the first book, and yeah, I definitely really appreciate it, and if anybody wants to read it, I highly recommend it. It's definitely a really well spoken book, and definitely has a stronger meaning behind just some kid learning geography. So it definitely has a very motivational and inspirational thing. Not a lot of kids, especially people in the U.S., take advantage. They can eat every night, and that they don't have to flee the country because something's happening, or most people are pretty well off, or at least have a roof over their head. So someone like this little boy in the book didn't. So it definitely shows you a different approach and a different lifestyle. I would definitely recommend this for really any age group that can, I would say maybe like 5 to 6 and up, to be honest. I know it has like a deeper meaning, but the kids should realize and be grateful for what they have. People around the world don't have as much as we do here in the U.S. So definitely for really almost any age group that can start reading and comprehending text, I would recommend the book from. So the book I do have here is called Dusk. It's pretty much also about a little boy. He's written a lot of books about a little boy. Again, it could be him. I know like somebody interviewed him and they asked him that same question, and he really didn't answer it. He tried to keep everybody wondering. So again, we're not really sure, but Dusk is just basically about a little boy and a little boy with a dog. So he has wrote multiple books with this little boy and the dog in there. The previous one, How I Learned Geography, doesn't have the little boy and the dog, but still has a little boy. And this one's basically about a little boy and an older man just traveling through the city, talking about the sun going down from like day to day out, and it introduces you to a bunch of different people, many different people that look like a Paris man in here. But then it showed, let me show you, sorry about that, showed like an English man like right here, and it showed like another like English woman right there as well. So it's just showing you different people from throughout the world. And then it showed like kind of like a man from like France, and then this other man who I have no idea where he's from, but he's speaking a completely different language. Says I don't even know what the language is or what it's meaning, but just basically they're traveling throughout the town, talking about the sun going down, and what's happening, and that the lights go on at night. I truly believe the meaning for this book was, when there's a darker time, there's always going to be a little light at the end of your day. There's always going to be something bright. The boy was nervous that the sun was going down, that he said it was drowning in the ocean. But then once the sun went down, lights started appearing in the town. So he was nervous that sun was going down. This could also be for kids that are scared of the dark. So this one, again, doesn't really have too much relating to language, but instead a few of these, the different language barrier within. It could be Polish, I have no clue. But pretty much I would definitely recommend anybody to read Yuri. He's definitely a very inspiring author, growing up and going through all that, and then coming here to the U.S. and doing that. Like, it's amazing. Some people here don't even want to follow their dreams or do this and that, or take advantage of what we have in the U.S. Like, people think, oh, we don't got this or that, but realistic, a lot of other countries don't either. And this man, he went through all that as a young kid, as a teenager, seen so much, worked a lot, but still continued working at, with his passion and what he loved to do, as illustrator, and came here and literally took advantage of everything he can. Now he's a very successful children's author. But yes, thank you.